Fantastic.
I keep it as casual as possible. That's... In that case, welcome to the podcast now.
Thank you very much for having me on the podcast. Great. Lovely to be here.
We finally got you here in the end.
Yes. Yes.
You vanished. Yeah, no, I was kind of like we're reaching out to you and wondering, like, I don't know if it was me. Did I?
No. Yeah. No, but thanks for having me. Well, you know how it is with social media. There's sometimes you need to take a break from various different types of social media, but I really enjoy kind of being on different types, chatting about comics and different types of social media. So always happy to do that.
In that case, I'm terrible at introducing people. So if you would, tell people who you are and what you do, please.
Sure. Hi. My name is Ned Hartley. I am a comics writer and editor. I write Bananaman comics for the Beano. I also write Steel Commando for Monster Fun. And I have written for 2000 AD Regine, the all ages 2000 AD special. And lots of other comics, which I can't really remember at the moment. I also write books about comics. So I've written Marvel Museum, which is a kind of history of Marvel comics, and Marvel Atlas, which is kind of a big atlas of the Marvel universe, and Spider-Man Origins, which is a kind of a middle grade textbook about Spider-Man. I've got various other books coming out, including a history of Spider-Man called the Spider-Man Museum, which is out this year, so that's exciting. And as well as that, I am a former comic editor, so I used to work on Simpsons comics, SpongeBob SquarePants comics, WWE, as well as Batman Adventures and Batman Legends in the UK. So for Titan Comics, so lots of jobs with the word comics in the title at some point in there.
Yeah, I mean, that's extensive. I knew kind of some of the stuff you did. Obviously, I found you from following Bananaman.
Yeah,
because for most people in the UK, Bananaman was a fairly staple comic for a period of time. Though at the same time, kind of niche. I've realised.
Well, it's one of those things that people remember very fondly. But you have to. I think you have to have been born within quite a specific to remember Bananaman. But I mean, the nice thing is that they keep that Bananaman being in the Beano means that different generations of readers find him in different ways. So I hope that not everyone that reads Bananaman, not everyone that reads Bananaman will remember him from the 1980s cartoon, but they'll find him as a comic in the Beano and a kind of superhero parody and a kind of in that way, and will enjoy him in that way, which I'm hoping they will do.
You've been doing that for a couple of years now, right?
4 years now. So yeah, so I think it was exactly 4 years. So I started writing it probably a bit longer actually. I started writing it in March 2018, and then my first one was published, I think, kind of maybe June. So just over 4 years. Right. Because we write a bit ahead.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, I can appreciate that. I mean, we're recording in like June, July, and this won't go up till September, October.
Oh wow, fantastic! Fantastic, right.
I try to stay ahead of the game. The world don't know this, but they know this now. We try to stay ahead.
You've given away the secrets. Well, actually, so it'll be probably coming out when I'm finished. The scripts that I'm writing right now will be coming out as well. I think I'm writing end of August. When you write for the Beano and you write for kind of kids comics, you always have to have an eye on when it's going to be published, and they're very good at keeping an eye on this because you don't want to have stories get set in school when kids aren't in school. And similarly, you don't want school stories when they're on their summer holidays. So I think that's one of the big things is making sure that we've that we kind of match everything up right. Doing that. So I think I'm writing stuff which is they're just about to go back. Kids are just about to go back to school now. If I just wrote one. What's really nice is that I've got 2 kids, so they help me write my comics sometimes. So the one that I just did this week, my daughter Violet helped me write, which is 10, which is really nice. Some people might say that I'm getting my kids to do my job for me, but no. I would say that I'm sharing my hobby with my daughters.
Yeah, I'd say you're consulting the target audience. That's what all you're really doing.
Well, exactly. That's
I mean, I guess I've never really thought about just the idea of, like, especially children's comic strips, having that level of current event timeline.
Yeah, I think you kind of you have to, in a way, that I spent years working in children's magazines as well, and what I would normally do is have like a timeline of the kind of big events in the year. So some things they're going to be there, like well, for example, with the World Cup this year, we know that's going to be later in the year, but we know that when that's going to be. When Wimbledon's going to be. When kind of school breaks up. What big events they'll be talking about, but also you kind of know. You've got an idea what TV shows they'll be talking about, so when Strictly will come back, when Britain's Got Talent will come back, when they were talking about those, and also you'll have an idea about when big video games are coming out and when big movies are coming out. So if there's a big Marvel movie or there's a big superhero movie, they'll probably be talking about that. And if there's if there's a video game that's quite that's been waiting for quite a while, you'll probably think we'll be talking about that. So I try and put that sort of kind of stuff in my comics as well. For example, there was a Bake Off episode, Off issue where I put Noel Fielding and Matt Lucas in the background, and they're kind of chatting with Bananaman because it was a Bake Off. I did it when I knew Bake Off would be on TV, and very slightly Matt Lucas retweeted us, and we kind of got a nice kind of hit from that, which is nice.
Yeah.
But sometimes with the Beano, you'll have guest stars that you'll kind of they'll write it. You'll work with them to do it. But this wasn't that. This was just I thought it was quite funny to put them in there.
And always going to have their little secret jokes.
Yeah, they kind of got about 3 or 4 panels each. They kind of chat with the Bananaman in there. But I know that Wayne Thompson, the artist, can do that kind of stuff really well. So I kind of thought, I like to give them kind of something different to do every week.
Yeah.
But we like to keep each other on our toes.
I mean, yeah, I think there's obviously that's kind of the unique thing with you guys doing it so often. It makes me think a lot of kind of like South Park's writing process, where they were producing episodes in the space of a week, and basing it on literally whatever was coming out in the news, writing jokes, throwing in, and you guys must have to be fairly volatile in terms of.
Yeah, it's a really nice process in that I'll be told on a Monday they'll say we need a 2-page Bananaman strip and a 1-page or half-page Billy Whiz strip, and can you have it ready by next Monday? And that's all the steer, the kind of guidance that I'm given, which is really nice. And from that, and then I've got a list of ideas that I haven't always, that I want to use, or kind of basic story ideas. But sometimes it'll just be whatever's happening in my week. Like sometimes Bananaman will be putting together flat pack furniture because that's what I've done this week. But then also you kind of, it's quite nice that because you're being I've only got 2 pages to play with. They're slightly bigger pages. So rather than American comics where you'll fit 5 or 6 panels on a page, for a UK comic, they probably fit between 9 to 12 panels on a page. Yeah. So you've got a bit more chance to kind of do stuff with them. You've got a bit more opportunity to kind of play with stuff with that. So that's quite nice. But really, it's only 2 pages. So really it's kind of, you've got to come up with a concept, get in, wring a couple of jokes out of it, and then get out of there. Really, you get to a punchline quite quickly. I always say I do workshops at schools with kids, to kind of how to write it. And I always say that it really helps for humor comic to think of it like a joke. Like, there's a setup and a punchline. Punchline is why did the chicken cross the road to get to the other side? So if you can think of a setup and a punchline to your story, then you can have some fun in the middle. But if you can really let it kind of end nicely like that. I don't always get that right, but sometimes if you can let it end nicely like that, then it's kind of really good fun to do, and you can those. I think those are the more satisfying ones. But also I'm really lucky that with Bananaman I get to play around with slightly more fantastical sides of writing of comics that I think for other stuff in the Beano it has to be a little bit more grounded.
Yeah.
Like for Minnie or for Dennis or for Roger, Minnie the Minx or Roger the Dodger or Dennis the Menace, they have to be a little bit more set in the kids' worlds. Whereas I can have a bit more fun and I can do an entire thing which is based on like a Steve Ditko comic from the 1960s that I liked, or I can do I can just I can be a bit more silly with it, and I can do we did a multiverse one a couple of years ago. We had lots of different kind of Bananamen running around, and I think that also I get to kind of riff on the comics that I love that I've always loved, and I think sometimes you can have that thing where not every kid is going to get every reference that I do. That some of the references are like we did it like a whole killing joke parody recently, which kids aren't going to get that particular reference, but they're going to get the idea that one of the villains has kidnapped the chief of police and is trying to kind of make him evil, and that's quite a funny idea anyway. So you can kind of play that situation for laughs, but also I can kind of do quite specific stuff in there. I thought in there in the same way that like in a good Simpsons episode, not everyone's going to get every joke. Not every kid is going to get every joke in there. But they are going to get as long as there are enough jokes that everyone can get, as long as the plot moves along nicely, and as long as you're not being too self-indulgent about it. I think that's kind of the way to do it. Then I've kind of said to myself I should probably stop doing. I'm going to take a break from doing comic references for a while.
Yeah.
So I've done quite a few recent. I did one with the Minnie the Minx became the Scarlet Minx in the Bananaman comic, and I thought that's quite funny. But I think that's maybe now I need to do something a bit. It's probably worth doing something a bit different. So do something a bit kind of sillier. But also, the nice thing about having different pages is 2 pages. You can play with the form a bit as well. You can make people jump from panel to panel. You can do something a bit.
Yeah, you're not like trapped in the kind of like the 3-frame like Andy Cap style.
Yeah, and I love Calvin and Hobbes. You can do a lot of stuff with it. And I used to write Wallace and Gromit comics for the Sun newspaper, and they were 3 or 4 panel ones. And actually, it's a really hard form to master.
I can imagine. So, like, I was going to ask you, like, how do you find kind of shorter stuff compared to like longer format comic writing?
I'm doing Steel Commando now with for Rebellion, who do 2000 AD, and that's 6 pages, and that's I'm actually quite enjoying having a bit more time to spread with that one, because I'm working with the artist called Dan Boltwood. He's amazing. He's a friend of mine. I've known him for absolutely years. It's really nice that I finally got to work with him. But that's a bit more actiony as well. So that's not. I'm trying to make, even though it's funny, and even though we hit the gags, we make sure we've got several gags, a gag every panel. We've got funny stuff in there, because it's an action comic. You've got to let the action scenes breathe, and you've got to kind of you've got to give them enough space on the page to look really fun and kind of big and wild and explosive. So that's been really nice, and also that's an ongoing story. So it's 6 pages every issue. So we're going to, and then once those collect up, once they do those, we're going to collect those up into a graphic novel, which would be great, into a kind of paperback, which would be really nice.
Yeah.
So that's really nice, being able to plot a wider thing, because I don't really have any I don't really keep many ongoing plots in Bananaman. I kind of feel that every issue is a kid's first issue.
Yeah.
And I don't want to put too much emphasis on, because sometimes you read these comics, I think, again, it's coming from me that reading X-Men comics were in the 1990s, which I loved, but they're all like part 7 of 322, and it's always like thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
Aliens attack this, and you think, oh god, I love this stuff, but I find that kind of stuff very dense.
Yeah, there's no jumping in and out of that kind of comic. Like it's like I think that's kind of what they like the whole like Marvel movie world, which is where they've tried to make it fairly accessible film to film, but then every so often you'll get a film, you sit down like, I have no idea what's going on here.
Right, and I'm watching this film with my kids, and I have to be like, well, actually, he was in this film, and he's in that film. I was talking to Sly Spurrier about this the other day, and he was saying that for Marvel, they now want you, whenever you meet a new character, someone has to say their name to them. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense, because how you know who they are. Like, no, it's terrible. I can't write like that. I can't write. Not that it can work. But he said, no, that's a certain way of doing it. And I was like, no, I think that's a really good way of doing it. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I don't know who these people are. I think that I kind of tend to write that way anyway.
Yeah.
But I think, but Sly's quite different, because he's coming at it from a very different point of view than I am. So it's a whole thing. But I think he's very clever in his way of introducing characters in ways which I wouldn't have thought how to do. I think perhaps he's kind of working on a slightly different level than me.
Just different level.
Yeah, well, we do very different things. So yeah.
Well, I think this is what surprised me when I kind of first looked you up, and I was like, okay, obviously Rice Bananaman worked on Waltzing Robin stuff, and I was like, 2000 AD in there.
Yeah, that was for
Audience wise is
no, I know, and I would love to do more stuff with them. And actually, it was for this. It's 2000 AD Regened, which is their kind of they're all ages one. So I've done a feature shot with them, and we'll see what happens in the future. But yeah, it was really fun to work with them. And I love 2000 AD, and I've just spent a long week last week with various other comics friends discussing the glory days of 2000 AD. I don't know if you can see behind me, but anyway, you can't because it's a podcast, but I've got many 2000 AD comics behind me, and I'm a huge fan of the prog. But I think what I love about 2000 AD is the kind of the anarchy of those early years. I've just been rereading Nemesis the Warlock, and I've forgotten how wonderful it is. But just the idea that absolutely anything can happen. And I think there's something very British about that we value originality, we value this idea that kind of taking different ideas as far as you can and kind of doing wonderful different things with them in a way that can become quite uncomfortable at times. And I think that's what 2000 AD is wonderful at, and when it works well, it's just brilliant. And I think that there aren't that many that storytelling vehicles that kind of consistently do that. And I think it's something that as I think we should be very proud of, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think I completely agree there. I kind of like looking at, obviously Bananaman in itself is satire of kind of Batman and all the big boys. And I think you're right in terms of British comics, there is sort of a level of just like, we're just going to throw this out there and just see what happens. And
I think there's this, exactly. And what's great is that when you can see people, these kind of writers that really enjoy doing that and that are really interested in kind of every now and again coming on and smashing stuff up, basically, and seeing what's interesting and seeing they can change stuff. And I think that, well, I think so. The problem, with 2000, the reason I think 2000 AD Regened, which is their kind of all ages comic, is a fantastic idea, is that you need to kind of bring new people to the fold. And I think what the danger of 2000 AD is that because it's so good at what it does, is that it's kind of got this fantastic fan base, but actually what you need to do is keep renewing that fan base, and it's quite a tricky thing to do. And because it's held so reverently by the people that absolutely love it, it's trying to work out how to to bring new life into that and kind of do that thing. And a lot of 2000 AD stuff hasn't really found the same home in the States as it has over here. Because I was talking to Mike Morton, the PR guy, about that, and he was saying that that sometimes he thinks that why would Americans don't they don't understand quite the irony of Judge or how Judge Dredd works, because Judge Dredd is fantastic. That it's in the few cases that you get to have your cake and eat it, that you get to watch something, you get to enjoy the irony of a fascist cop in the future, and at the same time enjoy him being a fascist, unironically enjoy his incredibly violent exploits. And it's something that I don't know that not everybody kind of will perhaps understand where that comes. Which was one of the reasons that I really enjoyed that last film with Carl Urban. So I think that kind of got the feel of it completely right. So
I'm one of those people. I'm weird who I enjoyed the other Judge Dredd film.
Oh, what, the Stallone one?
Yeah, because there's just such a campy value to it. I watched it, I was like, this could be a 2000 AD script. Like, it's not as violent as you want it to be, but everything else is just so spot on and over the top 90s. You're like, yeah, actually, no.
I actually thought Demolition Man was a perfectly good Judge Dredd film. Well, actually, that could have been
that would have been a perfectly good Judge Dredd. I never thought about that.
Yeah. But I've always thought there should be more 2000 AD films and TV shows. I know that Rebellion was looking into it, but I think there's always discussions about a road trooper movie or that kind of thing. I think there's such an incredible backlist there, an incredible kind of wealth of content.
Yeah, especially I think I've thought about this before, because when I read, I studied film photography for university. So when I was going through that, we were always kind of on the lookout for stories you could adapt into short films. So of course, the first thing I did was hand my friends Future Shocks. It was just like,
Yeah.
This, you know, you've got so many episodes here which you could work into a wider universe or TV series or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's almost weird that we never tap into that unless it's just 2080 protecting the print that
Yeah.
they want.
Well, they're very hard to write Future Shocks, because I don't want to do for 2080, because you know that there's a twist coming.
Yes.
So not only do you have to set up the twist, you have to then kind of feint the wrong way. You have to set up that it's going to be a different twist and then the one that you've got's in there. So actually it's a really, it doesn't have to be shocking, it has to be doubly shocking in a way.
Yeah.
It's quite a hard, they're very hard, they're very hard to write in a way that I didn't think they would be. But they're once when they work, they're really good fun to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're completely right that there's so much stuff in there that you think that, yeah, that, you know, I'm surprised that in this age of kind of Netflix and different, you know, and Sky and you know, Paramount, all these, you know, and Amazon strip mining all these different properties, that you know, you're sitting on a gold mine, different fantastic stories that could work so well. And you're right, even in, you know, they're just a regular Black Mirror style Future Shocks kind of, you know, anthology thing could work so nicely. And there's so many things that would just do work brilliantly, like, you know, there's ABC Warriors, you've got Robo Hunter, you've got Rogue Trooper, all these different things that I'm pretty sure Rebellion know the rights to. I know that Duncan was talking about doing a Rogue Trooper movie ages ago, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think so. I feel like I saw a headline with that of just like,
yeah. But no, I would love to see those ones. There's so much stuff that's going to the screen right now.
It's I don't know if it's kind of an odd thing, just kind of going back to the whole idea of it being like a British thing. Of the one which comes to mind, which is very similar, is Games Workshop and their lore and universe. And they've only just kind of made Warhammer films. And you're thinking, you also have this massive back catalogue.
They do. They've got all the Black Library stuff as well, haven't they?
Yeah.
Which is, there's tons of stuff there, and they're still, you know, expanding. You know, people like Dan Abnett doing incredible work.
Yeah.
Expanding those things. So you think that exactly there must be a lot. Is there a Warhammer film? I
think there is. I feel like I've seen.
Warcraft film, wasn't there?
Say again. Sorry.
There's a Warcraft.
Maybe I'm thinking of a Warcraft film.
I can't remember. I thought again, it's Duncan Jones, isn't it? I thought it was Warcraft, but then I don't know. But like a good Warhammer 40,000 film, that'd be, you know. And I think we're at the stage now where, you know, that we have the technology to do the special effects, that stuff, kind of quite nicely. But apparently there is, and I don't know anything more about this in headlines, but apparently there is a Bananaman TV series in production at the moment.
Interesting.
Which, or at least not in production, at least has been optioned. So I would be very keen to see that. There was a Bananaman musical a couple of years ago, which I didn't go and see.
I didn't see it. I saw a kind of a headline about it, but that was around the same time as they were saying there was going to be a Bananaman movie.
Yes.
And that never went anywhere.
No, and I think it's, I mean, Bananaman's great because he's such a broad concept that you can hang so much stuff off him, and you can do so much stuff. I mean, actually, when I first started writing from, I struggled for a couple of issues, and then I read an issue of Suicide Squad that Rob Williams had done, and in it, Captain Boomerang was using a boomerang for a metaphor for everything.
Right.
And I was like, oh, of course, that's what it is. Like, he just his world as Boomerang. So okay, well, of course, with Bananaman, everything should be a banana metaphor. Of course, that's how I can write him. That all he cares about is bananas. And that, I don't know why I didn't quite understand that at first. That I think I was trying to be a bit too superhero with it. And at that point, I was like, oh, okay, great. I can, if I'm ever stuck with to do something, it would be like a banana, or, you know, this is like, I feel peeled like a banana or something like that. And like, okay, that, and even if the metaphor doesn't work, that's even funnier because then you can do stuff with it. So yeah, that kind of made me, that helped me kind of with the character a bit. And then he's quite easy to write because he's an idiot, and superheroes take themselves very seriously. And I think that's where it comes. That's where there's, you know, the you look at The Boys, which is done in a very obviously very different way, but that's how superheroes take their morality very seriously. But Bananaman is because superheroes are very pompous as an idea. I mean, I love superheroes. I've got stacks and stacks of superhero comics, and, you know, and I love them. But there's this quite American thing of you have to take yourself quite seriously, and there's a certain level of American pomposity that I think we naturally react against in this country in a way.
Yeah.
That we are naturally wary of anybody that puffs themselves up too much, or that makes themselves. And I think I think maybe I've always, and this is kind of gone topic a bit, but I've always thought that perhaps that's perhaps why we've never really had fascism in the same way in this country as another country, because the one thing that is deadly to fascism is ridicule. I think we are quite good at ridiculing the important and the ridiculous, you know, ridiculing public figures. And I think that's what we look in the kind of 30s and stuff like that, the way that we didn't succumb in the same way is that we didn't take these people seriously in the same way. And I think I do think that's part of our national psyche, that we naturally, if someone, we naturally find people like that quite silly.
We distrust anyone who's confident. I think I tweeted the other day about I was talking about self-scan checkouts and how they're overly friendly and they're overly nice. And that's why we hate them. If they were passive aggressive or like slightly belligerent, we would have adopted them years ago. But
it's just food.
Yeah,
there is that kind of slightly twee, hi, how are you? Let's go on a shopping adventure together kind of thing, or hey pal, that thing. And I think there's something, isn't there, that just naturally kind of go against, that it just is an anathema to who we are.
I think I was because I was trying to think about it before, thinking about the idea of difference between kind of American creations and UK creations. And I was chatting to Lucy Sullivan recently, who's a comic artist who does these amazing kind of like abstract and in-depth, like Dave McKean style illustrations, is the way I'd describe it. And we were chatting about the differences between creators in different countries. And I think the best way I could think to describe it was, I feel like British creators have a lack of self-preservation about the things which we make. We just throw things out and we're almost like asking to be punched in the face. We're like, this is going to annoy somebody. Good. Throw it out.
Absolutely. And I think it's because English creators often look outside the media, but do genuinely tend to be better. I mean, not always, but tend to be a lot better about looking outside the medium. If you look at kind of big name British creators like, you know, Grant Morrison, like Garth Ennis, like Neil Gaiman, they're all ones that have looked at novels, that have looked at war reportage, that have looked at, you know, jazz music, that have looked at, you know, all different forms of, you know, I'm just talking about writers here, but you know, people like David King, you know, there's also, he's looked at different kind of art forms as well, collaging, and have looked at what, you know, and Alan Moore obviously is a fantastic example of this, and have looked outside the medium and thought, well, what can I bring? But you know, comics is quite, like jazz is quite a bastard medium, and have looked outside and kind of thought, what can we do? What can we bring in? And kind of, you know, what from movies works, you know, and what can we make exciting and bring in that way? Whereas I think a lot of American creators, like people like I don't know, Mark Waid or Brian Michael Bendis, are very good at looking at what's worked in comics, and then, or cut DC, because I look what works in comics and what can I then rework, or what can I you know, and what can I understand about what's happening in comics before, what can I look inside the medium and understand that at a deeper level and kind of bring stuff out with that. And I think I don't think that holds true for everything, but I think it is quite interesting that when stuff like that works over here, it's because we're seeing, like you're saying, you know, about big kind of collage stuff, that we're seeing what can we bring into comics, that spark, you know, interest and joy elsewhere.
It's I feel like almost like it's like we take kind of like a different route through creativity. So like I was chatting to Aaron Long, who's worked on BoJack Horseman and
Oh wow,
different subjects like that. But the reason I found him was through his little animated show he makes on YouTube called Sublo and Tangy Mustard. And he makes it himself, animates it himself, and then you chat to him about bigger shows, and there's this risk, he said, about things becoming kind of homogenized. And seeing shows like American Dad and Family Guy, and like you mentioned with The Simpsons, of just watching them gradually become adjusted as different writers come in and out, and like flatline into just a baseline. Okay, this is what we do every single day. And I think a lot of American creators start with the homogenized and then push against it. Whereas with us, we actively seek out kind of indie stuff and then try to force that into the mainstream media, I guess.
Yeah, I think that is interesting. I think perhaps sometimes, again, it's how different stuff is set up, because I think maybe if you're working in America, like in a writer's room or something like that, that there is this kind of perhaps consensus that you think, okay, well, oh, you know, I want something to be approved by everybody. I want to kind of get this through, so I have to make sure we can do that kind of thing. It's true. Whereas, you know, a lot of the way that British stuff is made is with a lot smaller writer teams. I mean, again, you know, if it's animation, if it's TVs, or but yeah, but also, you know, in terms of comics sometimes as well, that we don't again, I don't think perhaps we quite have the same editorial influence that I think, you know, if you're writing for kind of a big Marvel or DC, there'll be more of a editorial kind of overview. Whereas with us, you know, when you're making kind of smaller indie comics, you're kind of a bit like, I think I'll do maybe it'll be 5 issues, maybe it'll be 12, who knows? You know, and I have made a lot of indie comics in my time, kind of self-published stuff in my time. I do miss doing that sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, it's just for me at the moment where I am, I can only hit deadlines and stuff, but for so many things. But I don't know. There might not be. There might be. I might end up doing some more stuff. I'm working with someone to do some more stuff quite soon. So hopefully something will happen with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I used to do a comic called Punch Face, which is how I got the job for Bananaman. I did this superhero parody comic called Punch Face, and I put it on the internet. So if any of your listeners would, you know, how do you get a job writing for Beano, writing comics? I made my own comics doing a superhero called Punch Face, and it's really stupid. His superhero punches people in the face, and that's the entirety of the gag. And it's the same silly joke every episode, every issue. And I put them on the internet, and then the editor of the Beano got in touch and said, "Would you like to write Bananaman?" And that was 4 years ago.
That's the simple way to do it, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say if you want to make comics, the best way of doing it is making comics.
Yeah.
And I was really lucky that I met a load of people at conventions like Bristol and the Thought Bubble, and kind of met a lot of the community there. And it's really, really inspiring. There's so many people doing such incredible stuff that you can't help but think, oh well, actually I should be doing more stuff now. I should be raising them.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because obviously I chat to quite a few people who are at various stages of their career, and some are quite low level and some quite high level. And I always find it interesting of the one line which always holds true is just, if you want to be making something, you should be making something. Like,
yeah. And the lovely thing about comics is that it's just, you know, it can just be you and the pen. The reason I love comics is it's collaborative. So I really like working with other artists. So I've been lucky that I found in the community, I found other artists to work with, and I've done a little bit myself. But I've mainly been other people I've met either online or at conventions, and then we've kind of come up with ideas and work together on those. But yeah, it's incredibly easy to find. If you're an artist, it's incredibly easy to find a writer. If you're a writer, it's easy to find an artist. You can, you know, well, there are lots of different ways of doing it, and it's a really good fun process to go through.
Yeah.
There's nothing more exciting as a writer than seeing stuff that you can come back with someone cool. I think this is like nothing as well. It's fantastic.
I find that interesting that you said that, though, that it's quite easy to find people, because I think from looking in kind of like online forums, that's people's main concern is either like trying to be a writer and then thinking, oh, I'm going to learn how to draw because I'm never going to find an artist, or vice versa.
Yeah, I don't know. I found it. Maybe easy is perhaps the wrong word, but I have definitely found I've found artists several times online through that way, and again, it's a community thing. So it's people I've met, like Dan Boltwood, who I met about 10 years ago. and went drinking. I mean, his drinking buddy that I've worked with, that I've known for, we just got all the time drinking together, and they only just started working together last year. So it's taken a while for us to kind of find something that we could both do together. We came up with loads of pictures and loads of ideas in the pub that never came to anywhere.
Those are the best ideas.
Also, he's a really good mate, and I really enjoy hanging out with him. So it is one of those things that I think, not everyone can make it, different conventions, but I would definitely recommend it. I think if you're into comics and you can make Thought Bubble, it is all on the Film and Comic Con this weekend. Well, sorry, when this goes out, it won't be, so ignore
next year.
Next year. Any of those ones, then I would definitely recommend going there, because there's so many different people, different levels of kind of of where they, like you say, where they're in their career and what they want to be doing with it. That you can always find someone to kind of, and there are other people that are walking around that are being inspired at the same time as you, and thinking, I want to make comics now. And then kind of with that, you can kind of do a lot of stuff with there. But I'm sure there are loads of forums. So online, there are places that you can kind of go and get in touch with different.
I think as well. I mean, I know people get very precious about ideas. I think I was chatting the other day, saying the idea of the amount of times someone has an idea and then they don't want to let go of it because they're worried they might get a better idea for where it could go down the line. Like you write a short idea story and you're like, oh well, I could write a script for this. It's like, oh yeah, but I might want to write a book about it down the line. I don't want to use it yet.
I mean, I think you can't be too precious about that. I think I can't remember the quotes from, but I remember someone saying that the difference between having a good idea, I think it's having a good idea and then making that idea into a great screenplay is a difference between catching the eye of a good-looking woman in the bar and being present at the birth of your second child with her.
Right.
That is the difference between those two things. That, like, having a good idea is great, and that's fantastic. But I think also if you do want to be a writer, I think you need to have good ideas reasonably regularly.
Yeah.
I think I would definitely recommend any writer writing regularly to a deadline, because I have to come up with a new idea every week for Bananaman. Yeah. And I know it's Bananaman. I know it's stupid. It's a superhero comic, but it teaches you not very precious about it. That you're like, right, I've got to get this done. I can't, will I've done it the best way that I possibly could have done? Not always, but actually, will I've got, will I articulate it the way I want to? Most of the time, yes. And it's a really good thing to do that, because I think sometimes you can cling on to an idea, and you know what, you might have had a better one next week, or you might have then, by clinging onto it, destroy it in a way that that you could have done something more easy with it next time. But I think it's definitely worth being open to the concept that you are going to have lots of good ideas and then keep them going. And I think also, like, people say, oh, I had that idea before, and then they turned it into, I don't know, Squid Game or Game of Thrones. Like, did you, or do you have a very brief concept and they've gone through and made it, work? We've done brilliant character works and done all this kind of stuff with that.
Yeah.
And it's not, the broad idea is great, but that's fun. But it's the nuts and bolts character work. It's the making sure, it's the telling the compelling story. That's what people are going to remember. How you make, they'll remember how you made them feel, and that's something people are going to remember. So that's the important thing, I think.
I think that's the best message we can kind of put out into the world. I mean, like you say, it's just a case of reaching out to people, because you never really know, who's going to respond and collaborate with you.
Yeah,
and then just make him work.
Yeah, and it's and also the nice thing is when you get to work on an idea with someone, you get to kind of throw different idea and story beats backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
And that's really fun, and that's when comics become collaborative, which I really enjoy. It's like, again, it's the part of it I think it's really fun.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think we can bring this around to an end.
Oh, fantastic! I've really enjoyed chatting with you. It's been really, really good fun.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for coming on. As I say, I didn't know. Oh, again, we collaborated. I reached out to see
absolutely
what happened.
Yeah.
I mean, if people want to check you out, obviously they can find Bananaman.
Man. And my website and I'm on Twitter at Ned Hartley. People by say hello.
Yeah, people should pop by say hello, put their ideas out in the world. Commission 2000 AD to start a TV channel, because that's all I've been thinking about now since we've mentioned it.
We've put it out to the world.
They just need to form some kind of like pirate TV channel and push abusive content into the world. That's what we need. It's the most British thing we could
do. Fantastic. Love you, chat to you. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
You too. Thanks very much, Ned.
Take care.